Hi, Chris.
Hey, can you
How
hear
are
me?
you? Are you keeping
You
well?
there?
Can you hear
I
me
think so.
okay?
I can hear you perfectly well. Yeah, I think I'm okay. Thank you.
Oh, that's good. And thanks for agreeing to be part of the song tour and our Songwriters Festival, Chris. And um, really pleased that we're going to have an opportunity to talk to a few different people. And so glad that you're very first, our very first songwriter to be interviewed. So thanks for that.
No problem at all.
Yeah, and I believe you were at the Royal Albert Hall recently. What was it like playing the Royal Albert Hall?
Well, I've played it many times before. It's like playing in your living room, but with 3,000 people sitting on the sofa. So it's kind of nice, actually. It's very nice.
Yeah, I've never been myself, but I don't know if you've ever been in the Opera House in Belfast and
I
seen
have. Yeah,
it.
it's beautiful there. Yeah,
It's probably a similar vibe in the room. So,
it is
but
indeed. Yeah.
yeah, well, we as I mentioned to you before, we're going to record this and we're going to put it out during the Belfast Nashville Songwriters Festival. And
Fabulous.
yeah, and I'm hoping that it might inspire some of our songwriters to keep going, which of course it isn't easy right now. There's a lot of
Yeah.
anxiety about and a lot of people kind of trying to keep going in these kind of strange times. And I'm sure it has affected your career as well, has it, Chris?
Um, well, have we started the interview, by the way?
Yeah, I've started it right from the beginning and
Oh,
we'll use
okay,
all of
okay.
it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. How
You're
has
all
it
right.
affected? How's it affected me? The COVID stuff. Well, it's been very disabling in a way because I've had to be in the shed and at home for 18 months, but I've enjoyed that actually. I've got used to it. And then this year, completely the opposite. I've been on tour since July with Squeeze or with Jules Holland. So it's been a mixture of feelings, really. I don't know which I prefer, whether I prefer being on the road or I prefer being at home working with songwriting students.
Yeah, and I suppose it depends on what stage in your life and your career it's come along. I think for
Yeah,
the younger crowd starting out, is kind of a lot of them were slowly finding their feet and getting the occasional break somewhere, to be able to play. But
yeah,
it really has hit them, and we're finding, well, it's part of our in Pan Arts, it's part of our work to actually try
yeah,
and similar to what you do with your retreats and things, just
yeah,
encouraging people and trying to inspire people to
yeah,
write great songs. So
yeah. Well, we have three in-person songwriting events coming up. One in January, one in February, one in February, one in March, and one in April. Um, and they're reasonably priced and they're really good fun. And people come from. We've even got somebody coming over from San Francisco for this one. So that shows you that things have eased and that people are creeping
yeah.
out to do things now, which is great.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see it, and it's the same here. Things are slowly improving. And
Sure.
where are your retreats, by the way? I know, just for people that don't know, you've been organizing songwriting retreats for many many years, and I know that you used to go to Italy. I don't know if that's still something that you do.
No, it's in Glastonbury. It's just about a mile from the pyramid stage, so it's quite an inspirational place to be.
Oh, lovely.
But I also do online one-to-one workshops as well as workshops with various different people. So
Mm.
I'm very fortunate to be able to be involved in both personal and Zoom songwriting workshops. They're just really a great way to meet new people and to share experiences through the art of songwriting.
Yeah, and well, when you're talking with people who are writing songs, do you tell them a little bit about the process you go through and writing? And am I right in saying that you mostly were in Squeeze? You were mostly doing working on lyrics as opposed to melody, or was it a combination of both?
No, I'm a lyricist primarily, and during when I'm writing with other people, that's what I supply. So I think I haven't written any music really since 1973, so it's a long time ago. And I'd like to have a go at it, but I'm very happy just concentrating on lyrics and being the guy who writes the words.
Yeah. Well, for people who don't know and they're maybe tuning in and listening to this for the first time, a lot of the songs you wrote with Squeeze were successful, like Tempted and Cool for Cats and all sorts of songs that kind of many of them made it into the charts, and many of them were famous as album tracks. And so in most of those, you were writing lyrics then for those. It's the same right from the start.
Yeah, I've always been interested in words. When I was at school, it was the thing that I concentrated on most. So as a lyricist, that's been my career, which is extraordinary. I feel very grateful that
Yeah.
I've been able to do something that I enjoy doing.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed, I mean, and for anyone who listens to your songs, you're very keen on a story song,
Yeah,
more than other types of songs. And I love that about your words, that you will literally take someone on a journey and a story. And do you always do that, or sometimes have you tried different things, or do you just? I mean, you like storytelling.
primarily it's storytelling. I think it's important as a songwriter to tell people about who you are and what journeys you've had in life, because people, when they come to see you play or they hear your songs, they know about love songs. Everybody's written love songs, but people need to, not need to, but could write about themselves and about the journeys that they've had. And that's what I try and inspire people to do at my workshops, because we've all got stories to tell and they're genuinely different from everybody else's. So that's what keeps me going. I like to concentrate on myself and the stories that I can tell.
Yeah. Well, for people who tune into this during the Songwriters Festival in March, would you tell us a little bit about how you got together with Glenn Tilbury? I know a little bit about it because when you were over at the festival, you told us part of the story at least. But how did you first meet?
Well, it was really simple. I was looking for somebody to to form a band with, and I put an ad in a sweet shop window, and Glenn was the only person to answer it. Consequently, we've been
Yeah.
together now for over 40 years, which is an extraordinary thing.
What age were you then?
Knocking on 50 years. What age was I? I guess I was about 17.
Ah,
Glenn was 15, so maybe I was 18. I don't know, but
yeah,
when I met Glenn and Jules, they were 15 years old, so that's really young, and they were both extremely talented and
yeah,
could play and sing, and they were involved in music that I hadn't really been involved in, and so it was really inspiring just to hang out with them both.
yeah,
They were and still are geniuses at their craft. So to be in a band with like-minded people who everybody had ambitions, and that's what young bands are all about, having an ambition to go somewhere and do something different. That was an inspiring thing for a young man. It was either that or work in the biscuit factory, and I didn't fancy
yeah.
that.
No, well, I can imagine. And I mean, the chances too of you as a person interested in words, meeting someone who was kind of very interested in melody, and for him to be the only person who to respond to your advert. I mean,
Mm.
the chances, it's like winning the lottery, isn't it? It's kind of, the chances would be millions and millions to one of that happening, but and
Yeah,
yet
that's a
it
good way of
did.
putting it. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It was
Yeah.
winning the lottery in a way.
Yeah, indeed. And well, for us especially, when we've heard the songs that you've put out with Squeeze, and you've written with other people too. I remember you telling us you'd written with Elton John and Elvis Costello and people, and I'm sure because they're different people, it's a different experience. But
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about some of the other co-writes that you've done over the years.
Well, I was nominated for a Grammy for songs that I co-wrote with Foreigner for a film called Still Crazy, and I've
Oh,
still never met any of the guys from Foreigner, which is kind of weird. I just sort of emailed them the words. So a lot of the time, I like to write remotely. So if somebody, for instance, would like a lyric, then I send them a couple of ideas, and they can choose between two or three different options sometimes, and and then I just trust them to get it right. For instance, I've been writing with
Yeah.
Boo Hewardine for quite a long time,
Yeah.
and
Great writer.
I completely trust Boo. I mean, I just give him a lyric, and when it comes back, I'm very moved, or I'm laughing, or
Yeah.
I'm totally in tune with what he does.
Yeah. Well, we've enjoyed it. When he came to the festival as well, we had Boo many, many years ago. And,
Mm.
before this interview, I thought I would try and find the program we had of the time you were over here in Belfast. And I'm going to ask you to try and guess when it was, when you
Uh,
played the Belfast Nashville Songwriters Festival.
2002, maybe.
Well, 2008.
Oh my God.
2008, but I mean 13, 14 years. I mean, it is a long time. And
Mm.
we were privileged to have you over, I have to say, and we've had a lot of great writers coming through. But I know your songs were I've always loved listening to them, and it took me through my student days.
Yeah.
Fantastic songs. So uh, something else I wanted to pick up on: when you were over here, you came with us into the primary schools. I don't know if you remember. We used to work with a lot of primary schools doing
Mm.
cultural identity work, and you come in, and it was quite a session actually. We linked Strandtown Primary with St. Joseph's, I think it was, and it was such a lovely session when you talked about your life and writing. And have you done any other of that type of work with children in schools or since then?
Yeah, I have in East London. I've worked with lots of kids writing songs, and I enjoyed that. And I've taught at a local college, which is BIM, and
Oh
um,
yes, heard it.
yeah, it's kind of good because you learn so much about yourself when you're working with younger people. They have an energy that you just simply don't have, and they can bring
Yeah,
something to the table that you would never ever think of. And with a lot of patience and a lot of assistance from the teachers around you, you can get so much achieved. So for
mm,
me, it's something that I love doing, equally love doing from being on stage. I mean, I love being on stage. It's something I've grown to like, but I really like being around a younger generation and working through different ideas.
yeah. Well, another thing you told us when you were in Belfast here was your background. And am I right in saying your mother was originally from Coleraine
Yeah, they were
or somewhere
from,
near there?
yeah, between Coleraine and Bushmills. And yeah, I spent 15 years every August going to the Antrim coast for my holidays.
Yeah.
So I know that part of Ireland very well. And just recently, one of my daughters has moved to Dublin. So now I'm getting to know the South as well. So as an Ireland, I'm getting to experience the whole lot.
Yeah, well, of course, it's much nicer up the Antrim coast. It's kind of.
You would say that.
Do you know, I was there a couple of weeks ago. We were up in Port Stewart and Port Rush, two towns I'm sure you would have known when you were in
Yeah,
your teens and coming over. So it's a beautiful part of the world. And well, we maybe see you over here sometime again too. But
definitely.
Dublin is beautiful. Dublin's beautiful. And hopefully you'll get to see right across the other side, go across to Galway or somewhere like that as well. Some
I
special
have done
places.
that. I have done
Oh
that.
yeah,
It's
have
lovely.
you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, uh, I'm hoping that you might be able to dig deep into some of the projects you've been involved in before with on your songwriting retreats, and maybe give some advice to some of our songwriters at the festival here. So, for example, if someone is starting out, maybe they've only written one or two songs and they're not really sure about the next couple of steps, is there anything you could say that would maybe encourage them or possibly get them to take their music to the next level?
Yeah, I always kind of would like to promote the idea of songwriting as a hobby when you first start out, and it's something that you have to dedicate yourself to, so that even if you don't feel confident, that you carry on until until
Mhm.
something happens. And in this day and age, in the music industry the way it is, it gets increasingly difficult for you to get your songs across. But the internet is so enormous. You've got lots of ways of expressing yourself. So I think um, my advice is to have an ambition and to hold that ambition close to you every day, and go with it. Just completely immerse yourself in that ambition. And even if
Yeah.
you get like, and 2 months down the line or something, and you're still not raising eyebrows, or your parents are telling you you're shit and you should be doing something else, forget
Yeah.
it. Just sort of carry on and lift yourself up. And songwriting's a lovely therapy in a way. And I think if you treat it as a hobby at the beginning, and then it becomes your job, if you like, then there's no danger of getting too dissatisfied about the results, because they can be sometimes very harsh.
Yeah. Well, in fact, most of the time, it's a struggle for a lot of people to break through or to have one song that goes somewhere. And even in our experience too, we've noticed that even if a song, you can tell that the song is really good quality, and sometimes it goes out there and it just doesn't go. No one picks it up, and so I think too, you have to be quite resilient, don't you, to be a songwriter or an actor or a painter. You have to be quite
Yeah.
sort of people say thick-skinned, but you have to be resilient enough to, when you get the knockbacks, to pick yourself up again and try something new again.
Yes.
Was that your experience in the early days too?
Well, I was very lucky, because even though we did get knockbacks, because I was in a band, it was a shared knockback. So five of us were all
Yeah.
feeling it at the same time.
Mm.
If you're on your own, it's harder. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that songwriting is, as I said, a good therapy, and it's a good way of keeping you out of trouble. It was for me.
Yeah.
And it's joyous. Have fun with it, but tell stories. People want to hear stories. They want to know where you've been, what you've done, what your life is about. They want to know about your granny and granddad, and they
Yeah.
don't necessarily want to just know about the girl that you kissed, because everybody's written songs about girls that you've kissed, or blokes that you've kissed, whatever. I think it's the storytelling that is important.
Yeah. And if you're writing a song, do you take a few notes? Do you have an idea for a story, and then do you take a few notes about how the story might begin and end? And do you write down a few notes, or do you try to go straight into writing the first verse and the second verse? And
Yeah, I think for some people it's beneficial to make notes about, in the way that you're gonna the story that you're gonna write, and have
mm,
goalposts, set out, so you know where you're gonna go. For me, I just kind of throw myself in the deep end and just swim
yeah,
as hard as possible until I've got the lyric right. So it's for me, it's what happens is I wait for the songwriter to appear. And then when the songwriter appears, I sit here and I work on my screen and I come up with ideas,
yeah,
and I get immersed in it and I love it. I feel very nourished by it.
mm,
Um, and I feel like it's a gift, really, which it is. It's a real gift.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's a gift, certainly, and I think the more you practice your gift, the kind of better. Sometimes you can learn new skills, and especially if you're co-writing, you can pick up things from other people that kind of moves you along one more
Mm,
step forward.
mm,
Or
mm,
yeah.
absolutely.
Um, well, tell me a little bit about what your plans are for the next 6 months to a year. If things do continue to improve in terms of venues opening up and crowds coming back, have you got a tour lined up? And I know you were keen to go to America, and that's been moved a couple of times, hasn't it?
Well, we just got back from 10 weeks in America.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So we did that. That was
Mm.
exhausting. I haven't been on tour that much since I was, 20, since I was 20 years old, so it was exhausting for me at my age, but it was good fun and an achievement.
All right.
Um,
Excellent.
Next, in 2022, what's going to happen is we've got a tour at the end of the year. Squeeze have got a tour at the end of the year. I think Glenn's got some solo shows, and so have I. And
Yeah.
then there's some festivals. So, things things appear.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of, it's interesting. You don't have to kind of go very far for them to appear, and then when they happen, they're normally great fun.
Yeah. Well, and I hope it goes well for you, and I hope things do remain stable, which it appears we're going in the right direction anyway. I hope
Yeah,
so. I hope
yeah.
so. But um, also, Chris, I was hoping you would maybe give a little bit of advice to people who are trying to kind of make sense of how the music industry has changed with, particularly with streaming, I suppose, and with fewer CDs being sold. Um, you've actually seen quite a few changes over your career, no doubt, with cassettes and CDs, and now
Hmm.
this, you know, this new thing called streaming that is just absolutely taken over the music industry. Um, in terms of if someone's trying to kind of make a career in music, what advice would you give them about today's, what's happening today with streaming and downloads and things? What would you say to someone?
Well, I think if I'm speaking to a younger audience, they kind of know what they're talking about, and I'm not teaching anybody how to get themselves on the internet, because I'm sure that songwriters that are coming to you are going to be savvy about this.
Yeah.
You know, the internet is a great big shop window for everybody to display their um, talents, and really it's about learning. I think you need to learn social media at the same time as learning how to write songs. You know, if you can learn how to use Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all of the social media outlets, TikTok, you know, that's really what's going to help you get
Mhm.
your music heard and listened to, by tagging lots of other people, sharing your experiences with people, being in people's faces the whole time. It's very different. You know, it's like, I remember when we were younger, the way to get into people's faces was to print up flyers, and you go to gigs and you give them to people and say, look, this is me. Well, now you don't have to do that. You just have to go on Facebook or Twitter or whatever and say, hi, this is me. This is what I'm doing. Have a listen. You know,
Yeah.
that's not going to make you a ton of money or start your career in that way, but it helps. And I know that record labels these days will sign you if you're very social media savvy and you've got a lot of following. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing that I'm going to ask you, not whether you've got any great songs. They're going to ask you how many fans you've got.
Yeah. Yes, I've heard that. Yeah, I know. And I suppose it is it is very important. And in your day too, I suppose it was important, 80s, 90s. It was also important that people were able to keep an eye on the business side of things. But it's become even more important now because I think there are fewer managers. I'm guessing, but it seems there are fewer people who are taking on artists. There's a lot of the time now, and the people we're working with, they nearly have to be like a one man band or one woman band, where they kind of literally have to know a little bit of every aspect, including social media, as you say. But it seems to be that it's more and more important that you can do things. You can do a little bit of all of it, to keep going,
Yeah,
as
you
well
have
as
to.
writing great
Yeah,
songs.
yeah, you have to be able to spin lots of plates.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I know a lot of people are kind of they have a dilemma about when they start involving other people. Like an agent or a manager or chasing after a record deal and that sort of thing. Would you encourage people nowadays to try to, that it's becoming less and less important, that now that people can record themselves at home and put out
Yeah,
their own tracks online and
yeah, it's. I wouldn't say less important. It is important to have a good agent and a good manager who are going to bat for you and turn corners for you.
Mhm.
Um, it depends who you are and what you've got to offer. Everybody's different. You know, some people have got. You know, it's difficult for a band, let's say, to work without a manager. For instance, I think bands really do need. You can't just say, "Well, I'm the bass player. I'm going to do all the work." You can't do that. You know, it's much better to have somebody. If you're a
Mhm.
solo artist, perhaps you could forge ahead without a manager and an agent for a while. But again, you've got to be able to prove to people that you can cut the mustard and get on stage and do the gig, and that's the important thing. So you've got to get the hours in. You've got to get up there and do the gigs.
Yeah, yeah, and learn how to entertain and
Yeah,
how to
tell jokes.
express yourself on stage. I know a lot of people starting out, they obviously don't have those skills and they kind of have to learn how to do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the better you are at it, obviously, the more chance you have of
Hmm.
selling tickets or surviving in the industry, I suppose. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
it's yeah. Uh, I know one of the things we've come across is the kind of songwriters who don't want to perform, just people who write for others. Um, they seem to be struggling a lot more with just trying to get their hands on royalties and trying to survive. Have you thought about any of that side of it, where of people who they're solely writing songs, they don't want to be an artist? Is there any advice you could give them?
Not really. I think it's an individual answer to a question, really, because everybody's so different in that respect. But I think if you're a writer producer and you're at home trying to get your songs placed with different people, it's probably one of the hardest challenges, because most artists write and record their own material these days. So
Mhm.
you're kind of stuck a bit there. I mean, there are lots of outlets, but it's I think I'd give the same advice. Follow your ambition. If you're ambitious and you've got plans and you want to make a living out of what you're doing, you just got to forge on and be in the moment, really, and accept that there are going to be knockbacks, but you're going to learn from them.
Yeah, and just get out there and do it. Yeah. Um, have you heard about people who are sort of campaigning to try and encourage the streaming companies? Spotify and Pandora and all those. Have you heard that there's a lot of people campaigning to just try and
Yeah,
say that
yeah,
the money coming into those companies should maybe be shared a little bit more
yeah.
equitably, or
Well, I
um,
think that will happen, but it won't happen for a while, and
mm,
the reason is because they have this psychology that they get knocks like that as a business, and what they do is they hold their breath until people go away, and then they go
yeah.
away, and then nothing changes.
Mhm.
But eventually they have to come back, because you can't hold your breath for too long, otherwise you just die. So
Yeah, yeah,
they will have to come back to the table, and I'm sure that is what will happen.
yeah, and try to maybe share the money a bit more with the people who are writing the
Yeah,
songs and
yeah. I've
providing the
noticed,
music.
for instance, with Tidal, which is the streaming service that I use,
Hmm.
they've just started a way that you can contribute to the song. You can say that you'd like the streaming money to go to the songwriters, by clicking a box when you're listening to the music. So
All right.
I think that's new and it's progressive, and I think it's exactly what should be happening.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's a good one. I hadn't actually come across that. And Title is the name. And
Tidal. Hmm.
Title. Yeah. Um. Well, Chris. Finally, I'm hoping that you might uh, say bit more to our songwriters over in Belfast here to kind of encourage them to go to the next level with their songwriting. Is there anything that you kind of, is there a kind of a 4 or 5 things even that people could sort of focus right in on in order to write better songs? Um,
Well, why don't I'm happy for you to organise for songwriters to show and tell, if you'd like, and I can come on Zoom and we can get some songwriters to play their songs over Zoom, as I can't be there in person, and I can comment and give some ideas, hopefully, at a later stage. So it's difficult to give people advice from without knowing who you're giving the advice to. But if you
yeah,
want to arrange that, I'll be happy to come back.
I'd love to do that actually. That would be fantastic. And
Mm.
for people to get some sort of constructive criticism or comments about
Yeah.
where they're at and what they're doing. I mean, that would help a lot, actually, and I would appreciate that. And
So
well,
if,
our
if,
fest,
pe-
our,
so if people could, if you could maybe say to somebody, whoever want, that to come to the table with a song no longer than 3 minutes, and that the song should be about somewhere where they live, or an experience that they've had in their family, or something that is close to their heart, and not just a love song, so to speak. I mean, love songs are great. I'm not knocking love songs,
yeah,
but I'm saying just tell us about yourself in less than 3 minutes is what I'm saying.
right. I will do that, and we'll try and work it out and make it happen.
Yeah,
It's going to be, but the festival is between the 16th and the 19th of March.
that's fine.
And
I'm going to be here. I'll be
oh,
here.
excellent. Well, it'd be fantastic if you'd be willing to do that.
Yeah, of
And
course.
I know that the people we're working with, especially we have a thing called the Young Songwriter of the Year, the Panarts Young Songwriter of the Year. And we have these younger writers coming through. When we say young, we say kind of mostly under 25s. That's what we
Great.
class. But we have a lot of teenagers writing, and I know that in particular they would benefit most from what you're saying, and I would love to try that.
Well, I'm around that week. That's the week before I go away, so it's fine.
Class. Well, let's
Cool.
do that, and
Right,
we'll come
Colin.
back to you. And thanks a million, Chris, for everything you've said and for what you've done for us in the past.
No problem. I enjoy it. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Cheers.
See you, Colin. Bye.
Bye. See you again. Bye.